Gentlemen, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
So we've got an exciting podcast here. So we have three guests, and y'all joining me remote. So thank you for doing that. And the topic here is the USPSA Multigun, and I'm excited to learn about some new changes to the rules and everything. But first, I want to introduce our guests. We have USPSA Director of Media and Events, Jake Martens, with us. Jake, welcome.
Thanks for having us on, Dave.
And of course, we've got Shannon Smith, the match director of the USPSA Multigun Championship. Welcome.
Howdy. Thanks for having me.
And our buddy Reuben Aleckson, returning for the 17th time or whatever, from Vortex Optics, and of course, world-renowned shooter Reuben Aleckson. Welcome, buddy.
Hey, Dave.
It's great to see you.
You too.
So we just had a bunch of rules drop from USPSA, and there was some updates to the Multigun Rulebook, and I went through it just a few days ago myself, and they actually put out like a change log, which is really cool, so you can see what the former situation was and the new situation, and it looks like all these rule changes are made to make things a little bit easier. In the past, there was a lot of confusion amongst multi-gunners who are used to outlaw matches on where do I put my gun, where do I put my shotgun, where do I put my rifle, and stuff like that. And it seems to kind of loosen it up here a little bit. Jake, can you outline some of these changes here and tell us what the thought behind it was?
Yeah. So when we came out of 2019, Multigun that was hosted by Shannon there at the Universal Shooting Academy, there was obviously some issues and complaints with regards to understanding the gun handling around preload tables, staging tables versus safety tables, where you can bag and unbag, where you can sling, unsling. And there was conversation around it going into the 2020 Multigun Nationals, which is the last one that we held. And no changes occurred. Nothing went to the board. Nothing happened. And we didn't run a match last year with the change that we had. So it gave an opportunity to kind of really push the idea of where should we be going into 2022 and bringing multi-gun back to USPSA. Shannon, being the match director for the last couple of years, saw a lot of those things and had been kind of harping on, we need to change these, and the changes that you actually see are ones that Shannon wrote and submitted to the rules committee. And I pushed it in front of the board pretty hard in January at the in-person meeting. And they were the changes that were accepted. And the idea behind it is that to make it less confusing for competitors that are coming over from non-USPSA multi-gun matches, where we mimic some of the rules that they're used to, or a preload table where you can have a loaded shotgun. You can, previously you couldn't take your holstered pistol or bag pistol and lay it on that table. Made absolutely no sense. It was just stupid, ridiculous. Or if you wanted to, work on the scope on your rifle, you had to go to the safe area instead of at a table where there's a loaded shotgun. I mean,
right.
So let's make sense. Let's make things flow a little bit better. And Shannon spent a couple of days kind of writing that stuff up and going back and forth with Troy McManus, director of National Range Officer Institute, and presented that to him. They kind of wrote it up, and we bounced it around a couple of times, and that's what went in front of the board, where we were able to make a logical argument to the board and about let's loosen some of this stuff up because it just makes sense, and that's where it came from.
Well, I gotta say, from a multi-gunner perspective, someone who's been shooting 3-gun for a decade, this does make a lot of sense. There's it's loose enough to where you can do things like you said, like look at your dot or your optic on your rifle, but then it doesn't negatively affect safety either, which is a good thing.
Yeah, and Shannon can speak to a little bit of some of the, I mean, let's face it, we had, in 2020, we had probably one of the dumbest DQs that we've ever seen to a competitor that was there at the match, and just literally made no sense. And those are some of the things that kind of stuck with us about, hey, let's make this make sense instead of making it hard on competitors.
Yeah, I think we probably heard about that one. Shannon, do you want to fill us in on that?
Not really. Um, but it leads into the topic I was gonna bring into this is a lot of it is on our range officers, and this is not a knock on them at all. They're out there volunteering and busting their butt to help everybody put on a safe show, but
Sure.
they're not multi-gunners, and that's been the biggest issue. And I don't want to say USPSA is more official than another organization, but they take pride in their certifications. And um, are we a sport or are we a hobby? Is something I've always kind of struggled with over the years in terms of like I am a certified range officer. I'm the loosest safety call and range officer on the planet. You got to hit like a 220 to make me DQ you, but that's not right. As a range officer, if you break the 180, I'm supposed to disqualify you. If your finger's in the trigger guard, I'm supposed to disqualify you. Never in my life will I make a call for a finger on the trigger. If it's a new shooter, you're going to help them along. But that's a weird spot to be in, and which is what I came to the past president and the director of NRI about is the DQ was one of our best range officers. He's a full-time law enforcement officer. He's a three-gunner, and he had his side-by-side or a golf cart, I forget which, parked nose in to an unused bay, 25 by 25, whatever yard bay with nothing in it. No people, no stages, no targets, no nothing. And he took his rifle off of the back of the conveyance, as they call it, and walked away with it, or maybe he turned the muzzle up downrange or something. I don't know. It's been a number of years, and I've drank that away from my memory. But he got disqualified for it. And while he's still a friend of mine, I don't think that guy ever shot another match. And I know he never RO'd another match for me. And although he did stay and do that one, but I don't blame the guy. So while I was really, really mad at the range officer for that, whose fault is it? Is it the range officer's fault or for enforcing the rules, or is it the organization's fault for having that rule? And I think the latter. And that's what I've tried to push. As you guys probably know, if you grow up, and this is true across the tactical world too. I teach a lot of military and tactical folks, and there's no 180 in their world. I run these SF dudes through a stage or something, and they're going from a hard right side cover to a hard left side cover. They turn the other way, uprange, and with a rifle, and at no point do they flag anybody, and it's zero unsafeness about it. But if you grew up starting in USPSA and that's all you ever knew, it looks like the world's about to fall off the edge. And that's part of the issue is these people, they haven't shot three guns, so they see some guy running around with a long gun and it just looks wrong, it looks wonky. And maybe PCC is going to help with that a little bit. They're seeing some more long gun action now.
Yeah.
But how do you get the experience? And you got to get at it. And we have to have range officers. And we're looking pretty okay for this nationals year coming up. But there's not people beating down the doors to come out and bust their ass for 5 days and run the match. So you got a little bit of take what you can get, and then we work as best we can to educate them. But a big part of the issue was they're not three gunners, and that's not their fault or their detriment. It's just the way it is.
Well, I will say that one of the things, Shannon, that you've done really well is get three gunners out, especially your local guys down in Florida. I believe Joe Farewell and Tucker Schmidt are two good examples of three gunners that came out to work the match and help lead the people that are certified range officers into the way that three gun or multi-gun typically works.
Yeah, absolutely. Those guys are awesome. We have a lot of good shooters here in Florida, and three guns more athletic. So there is another issue with some of we call them seasoned citizens down here in Florida, but some of the older range officers, they just flat out can't run 50 yards on a multi-bay stage for 200 times in a row. So that's another part of the issues. But those guys are great at it. They were awesome to come out and help me out. And a lot of that's in the stage design and in the range, and going here to Clinton House, there's going to be some good bit of movement. So you got to have people, that can catch up or keep up. And I don't know if we started recording when we were talking about this or not, but we were talking about there's not a lot of USPSA multi-gun matches. So even though USPSA has a multi-gun certification for the range officers, I think I was talking to Dan Bernard, who's another range master at the match, going to be at the match. We were talking about this the other night. Because we were talking about staff, and he was saying like the lack of multi-gun certified staff that are working the match. But that's the same problem. If you've got 1 or 2 or 3 USPSA matches a year, there's not a whole lot of incentive to people to go out and get their multi-gun certification. You're like, what's the point in that?
Yeah.
I mean, number one, you can work the match anyway. We'd love to have you. But number 2, getting the certification, there's no drive, there's no carrot to have people go do that. I haven't done it.
Yeah, for sure. And so it's like what a day or a 2-day commitment to do so. Whereas in
I think it's just online, isn't it, Jake?
Yeah, so actually,
It's just online, and I still haven't done it.
Yeah, so your initial RO certification is the class that you get some pre-work to, and then you go to the class that covers the rule book, gun handling, how to apply the rules, how to do scoring. That's usually a 2-day class, and then there is a multi-gun endorsement and a steel challenge endorsement that are separate that you can get. And I'm ashamed to say that actually I haven't done that yet either. I did recently sit in an RO class that Troy taught here, which is the first time I've sat in an RO class since 2008 when I got my initial certifications. And that's some of the issue as well is that we have guys. I mean, it'll take me for an example. I took an RO class. I drove to Michigan, took 2 days of my time to do the RO class, become the Indiana section coordinator, and I've recertified every year. And I've ran a timer at the matches that I've put on. I CRO'd a stage at PCC Nationals. I've RO'd at Nationals previous to this job and other places. But we get ROs that only redo their certification. I mean, there are ROs that are right now that are certified with USPSA that probably don't know some of the updated the rule changes that we've had in the last 2 years. On just the USPSA side, not standalone on the multi-gun side of it, and when you have a volunteer sport, how do you force them to kind of keep up to date on things? So there's some things that need to change with how we do our certification. There's some things that need to change with how we hold people to that certification. But when you get onto the multi-gun side of it, if they're not working a lot of matches, kind of rusty at it. It's like when a guy comes up to me and he has a revolver and unload, show clear, hammer down holster or cylinder close, or I screw it up. I don't, because I see one of those guys a year.
Yeah. I certainly wouldn't know what to do in that situation.
Yeah, you stumble through some of that stuff, but to that side of it is that that multi-gun endorsement's out there, but that doesn't necessarily mean you're not going to be certified to run the timer, do the scoring tablet, things like that. When it comes to multi-gun, we're going to have CROs. So for us, the CRO is kind of the guy that's in charge of the stage, that are a little bit more seasoned, under the direct supervision of Troy's going to be one of the range masters, and Dan Bernard, who's been the range master for Area 6 multi-gun with Shannon and was the range master at the last multi-gun match there. So we have some experience on the range master side of it with guys that understand the changes that we're trying to do versus some of the other range masters that we have that are stuck in 1996. And there's some of them that are out there, and they're not going to listen to this, but I could call them out, and Shannon knows who I'm talking about. But we have some range masters that will sit on a 4-wheeler and watch somebody walk over, instead of stopping them and keeping them in the match, we'll watch them DQ. And that's that's bullshit. And that's
honestly,
something that Shannon's addressed.
That's the culture that everybody I've ever shot with in multi-gun talks about with USPSA, and that I think is a lot of the hesitancy to shoot a USPSA multi-gun match.
I can tell you that Shannon has done an excellent job in the last ones that he ran for us, and with the range masters that have been there. Dan Bernard, it goes through his pre-match meeting with the staff, and explicitly covers the fact that their job is to keep the competitors in the match. And we enforce that as much as we possibly can, and err on the side of the competitors as much as we can with regards to that. Now, something that you said when kind of leading up to this, when we were talking about a flag weapon's not a stick, On the flip side of that, that's like you said, some of the outlaw 3-gun community has that feel to it, to the USPSA side of it. It's like, these guys are just running around flagging everybody, and
Sure.
what do I do about that? And I had a conversation with some guys the other day, and I said it on a podcast that I did with Troy and Jody and Kevin Imo, the DNRI staff. Like, if a 12-year-old girl can manage her PCC at Steel Challenge, we as adults should be able to manage our rifles and shotguns in the same kind of manner. So, and for USPSA, we do have long guns in Steel Challenge. We have long guns in USPSA. So we can't just, ignore that on this other side of the sport. So I think there's a very happy median that everybody can come to and be like, yeah, muzzle up, muzzle down. It's in a bag. We're within 2 feet of the berm. I got it on my golf cart or stroller or whatever, conveyance or whatever we call them now, and everybody's happy, right? We're not asking for too much, but we do want to give on our side of it and make the handling of it when you get to the table, staging table versus a safe table versus that kind of stuff, a lot more transparent.
Well, that's a really good point, Jake, and it makes me think of like politics, right? We only know the worst of our supposed opposition, right? So from my perspective, we hear a lot of USPSA is DQ happy, and we know, and you guys know that's not the case, right? And so when we hear you guys are all just waving guns around and poking each other with your muzzles and stuff like that, we know that's not the case, and the truth is somewhere in between, right? We have a lot more in common than we do not in common, I would say.
Yeah, I think the biggest part of this is let's go and shoot matches and have fun and make sure everybody goes home. And let's figure out how, if there's an opportunity to put this under, one of the largest shooting organizations and get a pathway to international shooting or more matches on the ground, standalone matches, or like what we're doing with the 2-gun PCC pistol match. All these things that can be ran under our rule set that a lot of people don't know. Let's get that information out there and get more matches for people to shoot. That's what this is all about. Let's get more people shooting.
From my standpoint, as a shooter and working somewhat on like the match sponsorship, shooter sponsorship side of things in professional career, Dave, you're totally right. Like, you only hear the worst stuff, and it's like, I think one of the things that has not helped USPSA is that, really there's like one match a year. And so when you hear people that are like, oh, I don't shoot USPSA multi-gun because of this, and it's like, well, that was probably 3 years ago that story came up and you weren't there. And, and so it's like, if we can get some more match too, that'll help people. I mean, I've made a big push for myself to shoot more USPSA because that's where I got my start in competitive shooting. And to kind of come back to that and to revisit that, like, last year I went to 2-gun nationals first and then carry optics nationals. And, I remember going to 2-gun nationals and you're like, man, these people aren't as bad as all the 3-gunners are saying they are. And like, I'm exaggerating by that, but definitely going there and having good interactions. And, like you said, I mean, there's a lot more in common than there is separate. We all like shooting. We all like being safe. Nobody likes people that aren't safe. And so let's figure out these similarities. And, Jake and Shannon, like one of the things I heard early on that you said was, is this a hobby or is this a sport? And from my standpoint, like, golf can be a hobby and it can be a sport as well. And there's no reason that competitive shooting, whether it be PRS or 3-gun or Steel Challenge, or, you look at some of the trap and skeet, is it a hobby or is it a sport? And it's like, well, in some of the Midwest states, competitive trap shooting in high school is the biggest sport in the state by the number of competitors. I think I'm going to throw a number out that is probably not official, but I'd heard that in Minnesota, competitive trap shooting was somewhere around 20,000 people that were a part of it. And that's just in high school. And so there is a demand for competitive shooting to be more mainstream by the people that want to partake in it. And there's always going to be people that want it to just be a hobby that they do on Saturday but we shouldn't let that kind of hold back from, and one of the things that I do professionally is work with the sponsored shooting team here and our athletes, and that, yeah, they're athletes because you see people that are putting a lot of time, a lot of money, a lot of energy away from their families, away from their professional careers into shooting. And it's kind of one of those things that's always been a bummer when you see this person, that has really truly dedicated as much of their life to this sport. People who are in sports that mainstream culture would call professional sports, and they've reached this elite athlete status, whether it be on the mental side or the physical side or just the pure skill based aspect of the shooting sports, that running different firearms efficiently and proficiently. And it's kind of a shame that, there's countries around the world where those people are really, really celebrated. And yet America, where we have probably more gun freedoms than anywhere in the world, it's kind of like, yeah, you guys are rednecks that, like to go shoot on Saturdays. It's like, no, man, these are world-class athletes. And anywhere that someone reaches that level in any other sport, they would be celebrated.
Yeah, so well true, said. Man. Well said. Yeah. So you're absolutely right. And I do think that the key to, normalizing the, I guess the methods and the rule set and stuff like that is more reps, so more matches and things like that. And I do think that a road to international competition where there is the recognition that Reuben was talking about is something enticing and something that USPSA could be doing a better job of. So I know that there are multi-gun and single gun opportunities coming up. Specifically, like there's the 2-gun, the PCC pistol match that's happening in Cameo. So what else is happening in the USPSA world for long gun and multi-gun?
Well, we start with Multigun Nationals, and I'll let Shannon kind of take it from here as the match director. But a little background on it is why we didn't hold a Multigun Nationals last year was that with Shannon, left Universal Shooting Academy. We didn't have an opportunity to kind of reschedule that really quickly to go someplace else. And the past president at the time wasn't feeling comfortable just dropping that match anywhere or outsourcing it anywhere. So I fought pretty hard to replace that with the 2-gun concept, and we can kind of get into that a little bit after we talk about this multi-gun. But coming out of last year, I talked to Shannon about it, and I was like, I want to put USPSA Multigun back together. We have an opportunity to take it to a range that has a history of what multi-gunners like, right? Bay to bay and natural terrain. So I tricked him into being the match director yet again. We have this kind of standing thing where I throw an idea out there and he answers it, but I don't send it to him until later in the evening when he's kind of tired and not paying attention. But yeah, he hopped on board to be the match director of it. And because he's got more experience in putting those big matches on the ground than I do. I mean, I've shot our multi-gun matches. I'm not a multi-gunner. I kind of have the joke about, 3-gun is too many guns. But I got all the gear, and I've shot them when they were out there in Vegas with Pete, and I've shot all of Shannon's ones. I've even DQ'd at one of Shannon's, so I've got that going for me. And it wasn't on the stupid rule. It's just, I threw a shotgun where it was supposed to be in the trash, and I missed it. So yeah.
Stay away.
So Shannon is back as the match director and has been to Clinton House and knows what's going on there, and he can talk about what's coming up on what we have coming up in at the end of the month.
Quick, yeah, it's going to be exciting. So new venue. I shot the Multigun Nationals in Vegas as well, and then obviously the ones at our place, my old place since then. Jake suckered me into this, as he does from time to time. And I'd been to Clinton House back when they had the last 3-Gun Nation regional something or other there, I think, which was, 5-6 years ago. And so they've done a ton of work to the place. The owners are super into bringing in matches and doing pretty much whatever we ask in terms of cutting out new bays or bringing new areas. So they do have a lot of matches there, a lot of the more natural terrain traditional, if that's the word, type matches. And so we're kind of doing a hybrid. They've added a lot of bays, a lot of huge bays. So we're having 2 zones, a 3-zone match, 2 zones in what I would call their bay area of 4 stages each, and then 1 zone out in the woods for 4 natural terrain stages. But even in the zone area, there's 2 stages out to 300 yards and 1 stage out to 100. So it's going to, although it is technically inside of a bay, it's going to have a bigger feel to it. We'll have some multi-bay things as I've done in the past, get some opportunity to run a little bit. And then we'll have some options in there too, some optional targets. If you're shooting open and you got a bunch of slugs, you can avoid the pistol and vice versa, and some opportunities like that. So all the stage designs are done. They're drawn up. If they haven't they haven't been published yet, they're probably coming out this week, and be up there not too long, getting ready to get started. So I'm looking forward to it.
That's one thing I like about USPSA is that you get to see the stages before you go to the match, and I think that's pretty cool. So it also, shows that there's a lot of planning that goes into the match. So I will admit that sometimes it feels like when I show up to an outlaw match that they drug it out that morning.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'm right, but
Yeah. And it's difficult with 3-gun too. I've done it in PowerPoint. I've tried SketchUp. I'm too dumb for that. And I've got that 3D modeling kit I use now. But it's difficult to depict a 300-yard, 270-degree stage in 2 dimensions on paper or in a model. So some of them I did just by hand this year, something different. I just wrote a paragraph on, all right, listen here. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to run through these woods and we're going to shoot some rifle. Then you're going to drop your rifle and sprint down the hill with a shotgun. But I think they'll get the feel of what's coming and get an idea on round count. But there's still going to be that aspect of, just like you said, when you start building stuff out in the woods, you might have planned for 20 clay targets, you end up with 30. So it's never exact, but at least it gives them an idea for. At least as a competitor, when I look at them, I look for something that's weird. Am I going to be shooting left-handed? Am I going to be prone? Do I have to unloaded shotgun starts? Something like that where you know something you can practice that's going to be worthwhile other than just your general stuff.
Yeah, I feel like all good times start with, so here's what we're going to do. So you're on the right track there. And Shannon, I've listened to your podcast. Well, up until it paused for a while.
I quit.
Yeah, I was being nice with the pause, but for years. So I know that you put a lot of thought into the matches. And if it's still out there too. So if anyone's listening and they're curious about how Shannon thinks, and you're going to go shoot Multigun Nationals, definitely check it out. The Shannon Smith Shooting Podcast is a really good one. So I do like the mix of bays and natural terrain. I think those are both different skill sets, and sometimes I think that gets lost in translation. Like natural terrain sure is a lot of fun. It's cool to run through stuff, but where I shoot, where I started shooting in Colorado, we had only bays. So when I got to my first natural terrain match in Texas, I was like, oh God, what the hell do I do here?
Right.
So having those tight technical bay courses and then also testing the natural terrain is kind of cool because it does test both of those skills for the shooter.
And they're a big sorry, Jake, they're a big sporting clays range also. So I plan to incorporate a good number of the throwing machines. I'm not 100% sure that's going to work yet. We're going to have to get out there and try it, see how it works in an on-the-clock scenario. I've done them before and they're problematic, but theirs are better. So we'll see. That'd be cool. I mean, you got the space to do it. Might as well get some aerial targets in there. That's the only thing a shotgun's supposed to be used for anyway.
You're going to make a lot of friends with the aerial targets.
Hey, usually when you hear people describe Shannon's stages when they get interviewed, they have to use the bleep button a couple times. So I'm looking forward to that.
You're still gonna have to be able to shoot. It's not gonna be a hose fest, I guarantee you.
Yeah, buddy.
Nice.
And that's one of the things that when we changed gears with Pete running them out in Vegas, he had a very specific style of match that kind of duplicated itself year over year and kind of carried over into UML where he went with that. And when we changed gears and went to Shannon's style of match when we went to Florida, the hose fest kind of went away, right? Because there was a lot of options, there was a lot of things that you could do, and Shannon tests kind of a different skill set with all 3 guns, And I don't know, at least from my aspect of it, I found it a lot more challenging, but a lot more fun because it did keep me out of my comfort zone quite a bit because I don't shoot a lot of rifle and shotgun, so it was a lot of fun and I enjoyed the change in the pace that we had when we switched it up. And now this is going to be, we had a little bit of kind of natural terrain in 2020 over there on the 600-yard range. This is a little different, and Shannon has done. I've been to Clinton House 4 times. I think you've been there twice now
Correct.
to do it. Yeah, and then we're doing the gathering the week before setup, so we're gonna be scoping things out even for another time before we get on there. So it's all buttoned up and not last minute thrown together kind of things. I started this process in June of last year of visiting ranges and working on getting this on the ground. So
Nice. So Shannon, what's the farthest target people are going to have to shoot?
I don't think we're going to be past 350. There's and like my kind of general thought process is nothing under 3 MOA, and I'd rather it be 4. So decent size, it'd be a decent sized target out there. A limited guy will be able to see it. And I'm going to try to have some backers on the farther stuff again for the limited guys to be able to pick out the target. But nothing extreme long range. And we did 600 last couple of times, which is cool. But it's I don't know. It's it's not a sniper match, and I know snipers would laugh at a 600-yard shot. But and part of it too is just the way the range lays out when they do what they do out there in some of the other matches, and you're literally driving from stage to stage, and you can use a lot more of the range than the format that we like to use. And in fact, when we went up there for our first site visit with Mike Sexton, we were probably 4 hours on side-by-sides or something, four-wheelers driving around. And he'd pull over and be like, all right, now here's a spot you could shoot. And I'm like, what spot? Like, we're in the middle of the woods. Like, what do you mean? He's like, oh, you just shoot wherever you want. And then we'd drive another 45 minutes. All right, here's where we do one here. And I'm like, wait, weren't we just over there shooting this? How's it? No, there's a hill in the way. You're fine. And so that's super cool when you can do that. But with our time standard and the amount of people we're trying to get through, we can't be that spread out. So we have to be able to be in that zone, as we call it, which is what we're able to do up there in one area. So part of it is too just the way that area works. You can't really get to 600 or 500 or whatever, But they've got the 1,000 range there, which is super convenient. We almost use that, but the area that we chose, is basically downrange. You're basically at the 1,000-yard target, so that kind of takes that one out of play a little bit.
Yeah,
Shannon,
so
I got a question.
Answer your question. 350. Sorry, go ahead.
I've only shot a little bit of your multi-gun in the past. And from a competitor's perspective, I was wondering, when you're putting stages on the ground and designing stages, do you have any type of thought in mind or a thought process that would lead you to try and create differentiation between division finishers? Like, do you want the open guy to win the match overall and the tack guy to be next and then the limited guy to be third? Or do you have any of that in mind when you're putting these on the ground, where it's like, yeah, that's going to probably suck for this guy? So, because I know it's one of the things with matches is like one of the big things that can cause separation can be long range. And so where, like in your head, where do you see like the finishers of the match at the end of it kind of laying in terms of like their finish between divisions?
Yeah, to answer your question, I don't specifically give that a thought in terms of who I want to finish where. I just kind of assume that the open guy's going to win as long as Horner's not shooting tack, and then the tack guy's going to be next, and the limited guy's going to be next. Where I do give that thought is in some of my optional stages where as a anti-shotgun person, like there's no way in hell I'm going to shoot more shotgun than I have to. So one of the stages, for example, has like 10 or 12 paper targets on it that you can shoot with pistol or slug.
Sure.
And, it'll
Obvious
save you.
slug target.
Yeah,
Right.
that's what I was thinking.
It'll save you coming back across the stage again with a pistol if you can go across the one time with a shotgun, So
Sure.
I think open guys will probably do that because of the capacity. Tack guys probably won't.
Yeah.
Unless you're really strong with a shotgun. And then I mean, I've never played around in open that much. I've never used a bipod very much, but there'll be some opportunities to go prone here where I don't see that a lot in matches. So, that's definitely going to come into play
For sure.
versus the tack guy trying to rest off a tree or a rail or the ground or whatever. So I've always thought those sorts himself out.
Yeah. Cool.
That I think is cool because I've heard from a lot of open shooters that there's never really a chance to use a bipod and make an advantage
Yep.
there.
That's what I've always thought. I mean, everybody says that in open, like, oh yeah, but you get a bipod. I'm like, yeah, well, I've never seen anybody. Not never,
Yeah,
very rarely do you see anybody an opportunity where you can use a bipod, but there'll be one here, at least one.
sweet. That's great to hear. So, what other things can we expect from the multi-gun championship this year?
There's a good mix. There's 2 stages with a single gun, none of which are pistol. So I got my hand smacked on that one last time I did that. So, but we do have an all rifle stage that's going to be kind of fast and furious, little assault course looking thing. All shotgun jungle run is pretty typical. Hope to get some throwers in there. That'll have I don't know if it's really my signature, but that'll have the hand thrown clay as a start position. So that'll be your first target. And then all the others are a mix of I think 6 of them are 3 guns. 2 of them are the single. So what does that leave? 4
Let's
more.
say-
So there's four or 2 guns. So like rifle, shotgun, pistol, rifle, pistol, shotgun, that kind of thing. Definitely be some shooting. There'll be some penalty targets. There'll be some no shoots. So it's not going to be a hose fest. If it lays out right, I am going to have a couple paper targets at like 250 with rifle. I did that last time at 400 with rifle, and that really ruins people's day. So we don't have that steel feedback. If the layout and the reset works, I'm going to try to do that, but that's not 100% yet. And then they've got a little shoot house thing. Even in the bay stages, as I said, there's 2 areas where you're going to be like at the end of the range, like right around here is the woods. So you're going to start in the woods with shotgun or something and then pop into the bay and finish out the stage. So even in the bay stages, there'll be plenty of moving around and a little bit of getting out in the terrain.
Cool. I like it. So we had talked about some other things that are coming up for long gun and multi-gun after the multi-gun championship here. What does that look like? What can we expect from USPSA in that realm?
Well, we do have the 2 gun nationals that are going out to Cameo.
This will be the 2nd year of the pistol PCC, and that was something that the idea when we ran the Area 5 JP PCC Championship in 2019, I think, or 2018. I can't remember. One of those. I was the match director for that, and I the whole time through the match, I was like, it would be really cool is if we had a pistol, and kind of combine it. So I had an opportunity to push that last year and get out there, and was completely. When you're trying something out, what I had in my head was a hose fest match. What we put on the ground was not a hose fest match. It was probably one of the most
Bad.
technical matches.
Reuben
and
shaking his head too.
Yeah, so some of that, just so people know, is that we erred on the side of how do you score a target to make sure that the PCC target was shot with a PCC and the pistol target was shot with a pistol, because a 9mm hole is a 9mm hole.
Mm-hmm.
And if you went down there, then you couldn't tell. You would just start having a shit ton of reshoots and slow the match up. But the match was based on 4-minute turns that turned into 7-minute turns, because the setup took longer and the shooting took way longer than I ever expected. So we've corrected that a little bit. We've got an opportunity with going
Because
to
every
Cameo.
stage was 100 rounds. That was the problem.
There was that too. Yeah, we got a little.
And I was shaking my head just because, like, going into it, you usually think that, like, anytime something's not a scored target, if it's a 2 anywhere, it's like, oh, this is going to be, really strong multi-gun finishers. And it was people that happened to be really good PCC shooters and really good pistol shooters. That's, it was challenging. I was shaking my head but in a good way.
Yeah, I will tell you that I went out of my way on the stage design to make it balanced between you had to be good with bows. Now, I went way out of my way on it being way more technical than it should have been. So, learn my lesson there. I'm not gonna say we're gonna dumb it down, but we're gonna make it where you're gonna shoot pistol over here and you're gonna shoot PCC over here, and you don't have to go, to every place 5 times. And I'm not gonna let Shannon put clay birds at 45 yards either.
Oh, yeah, you are.
Yeah. Apparently, when you
Because
pull
that
up
was the
with
problem. Not running 75 yards on the stage. It was the 6 clay birds that you took
Yeah,
2 rounds each
all
of.
right. 22-pound ammo can, man. Yeah, so apparently when you pull up with a 6 MOA red dot on a 45-yard clay bird, the only thing you see is the berm and a red dot. So
Sure.
that was very interesting.
Well,
on
it sounds
some
like
of that
someone
stuff.
chose the wrong tool for the job. So when
Yeah.
when I hear people complain about 45-yard shots, is like it is a carbine, right? Shouldn't it be
Right.
used differently than the pistol is?
Yeah. It was, so we're doing that again. We're going out to Cameo.
Well, we're going
Registration's
to,
open
we're
for
going to
that.
a lot further, a lot deeper bays now, too.
Yeah, so that's the other thing too, is the way the bays is set up at Cameo. You can do some of that longer PCC shooting at the front and then work your way down into some pistol stuff, or vice versa, on the bays that they have. That match is almost full. I think there's 25 or 30 slots. It is June. You think I know this off the top of my head by now, but June 10th, 11th. So staff shoots on the 9th and 10th, and competitors are the 11th and 12th. So it's a 2-day format. It's not AM and PM. We learned our lesson on that as well. You can't shove that much shooting into it. But that's the plan. It's on practice course, so if you want to hop on there. And then some of the other stuff, we have been in conversation. The guys at Clinton House, Chris Grant, who owns Clinton House, Mike Sexton, who helps him out there, and his son Chad, they have, if you've not been there since even the Microtech match in September, the changes that they have done are a lot. I mean, there's a huge pavilion. They finished out 3 more bays. They've got the shoot houses built up. They've had a lot of ground clearance and timbered some of the areas through there. So it looks completely different than it did even when I was there in September.
Huh.
They have matches coming up that Donnie Flo is running under the Tar Heel 3 gun. We've been in conversation with Donnie about running some of the standalone shotgun matches as USPSA level 2. We're working with him. He just had a kid, so he's a little distracted by making a duplicate of himself. So we're going to kind of help him to see if we can get some of those going. Magpul and Vortex are sponsoring the Wyoming Governor's Cup that is now a USPSA level 2 multi-gun match that is in
Oh,
July.
cool.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
I think that's at the end of July.
Who
And
runs that?
I know that Matt Waite is the range master, and he just got his range master certification this past fall with USPSA. I'm not sure who the match director is.
So that is a multi-gun match now?
Yeah. I actually found that out yesterday while I was on a conversation with Magpul.
Interesting.
I had to go to our calendar and look it up and find it, and it is listed as a USPSA level 2 multi-gun match.
Well, that's cool. So so it's been around for 5-6 years now, and it's traditionally a multi-gun match. But when it was announced this year, it was pistol only. So it sounds like they swapped the format to multi-gun.
Yeah, so it's the Magpul Wyoming Governor's match presented by Vortex Optics. That's listed as pending approval major match. And talking with Will from Magpul yesterday, he was saying that it was a multi-gun match. So if I am incorrect about that, I'll have to double check. But that's what I was led to believe. So hopefully I'm not wrong.
Well, that's
Find
good.
out when you show up.
Yeah.
It's
Bring them all
it's
in.
a lot it's a hell of a lot of flying out there with a rifle and a shotgun and all the ammo to sit there and be like, well, in case we get attacked, I'm good to go.
Yeah. Well, we got groundhogs out here that need to be taken care of.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm excited about the other thing that we discussed with the board is kind of doing the universal rule set. where we can do recognized matches, where it doesn't necessarily have to be a sanctioned level 2 match or a level 3 championship match, but we can work on recognizing your match, something that we've done in the past, where the divisions and the rules are close enough, but if you have, some targets or your stages aren't necessarily USPSA friendly as far as rules, or you want to use a spinner because our steel has to fall, we don't use spinners. You want to use a lot more rope instead of fault line or caution tape. Not a huge difference there. My desire is to be able to pick 4 or 5 matches a year that want to fall under that recognized or sanctioned match, and maybe figure out how to get a classification system out of it based on your finish, or use it as a path to the international matches where we can do point-based stuff instead of just having to participate in USPSA Multigun Nationals. So that's where I want to go, over this year and into next year.
That's pretty cool. So then, is I guess like it's a larger conversation than what we have time for today of like how the World Shoot teams are chosen. But do you then plan on using like long gun matches, like shotgun matches, to actually select the shotgun team? Is that like the ultimate goal?
So right now, the board put a committee together that I believe Area 2, Leighton Otheisen, and Area 3, Matt Hopkins, and maybe the president. It's in the last minutes, or the minutes coming out of January in-person meeting, to write and structure World Shoot team selection process, which would include standalone rifle, World Shoot standalone shotgun, standalone PCC, and standalone handgun World Shoot stuff. So they're supposedly working on that. I have some ideas that I would going to kind of throw in there and include, where I think people should be able to apply and say which matches they're going to shoot and which divisions they want to focus on, and then have that kind of back into, this is what I went and did. So, so they know ahead of time, this is what I want to go in 2 years, and this is what I'm going to go and do. So I've made that recommendation. We'll see if that gets picked up. I am not a board member. I am kind of an advisor to the board. Work with in the the industry reps that we talk to, help put on matches and all that stuff. So I can tell you that the absolute best way, if you're passionate,
For guys who like making memes and tagging at the USPSA, the only guy who sees that's me.
That gets nowhere, right? If you're passionate enough to have a 30 post hour long argument with somebody on social media, but not passionate enough to get in contact with the president and your area director or the board, that's where the failure kind of happens, right? The board is very receptive to listening to conversations, emails, phone conversations, talking to them at matches in person about your ideas. But if your idea comes across of, hey, I own a 22 revolver and I'd like to have 22 revolvers in Steel Challenge, make a division for me, that doesn't work, right? Or like I said, 30 posts on a social media thing, that doesn't work. A good conversation saying, hey, I'm very passionate about optics and tact ops, or I'm very passionate about World Shoot, I'm very passionate about this. Here's some of my suggestions, here's some of my ideas. Email it to them. The contact list is on the USPSA website. Send it to all of them. Send it to me and I'll forward it to all of them. But that's how change happens. The industry's changing, the firearms are changing, the sport's changing, and if you're wanting to see these changes, that's how you got to go about doing it. So that's my recommendation to everybody, is if you're passionate about it, get involved, get a hold of these guys. They'll listen to you. They'll listen to reasonable arguments. And you may not get a response right away, but I can tell you that the emails are seen, they're read, the phone conversations are taken, and the conversations at matches, and that's how the stuff gets filtered up. And that's how change happens with things.
I can definitely confirm that, because I can think back to a couple years ago when I started X phone pretty hard. It was like, it wasn't just, hey, I want this. It was, hey, what do you think about this idea? And there's tweaking and stuff that went on along the way, just a little bit of back and forth about ideas. And yeah, definitely definitely take the path of providing suggestions, providing input, and be willing to get perspective kind of back to you from the people that are really involved with USPSA. Because if you're not super involved shooting USPSA matches, and you've only done multi-gun or you've only done another sport, like there's definitely perspective to be had from both sides. And but yeah, Jake's been awesome to go back and forth with.
Yeah, I try to listen to all types of perspectives that are on things, and a lot of times, I just to kind of give you an idea. So there's a little bit of a joke. All right, it's not a joke. It's a joke to me, but there's a little bit of this kind of back and forth where we had a suggestion where somebody thought that we should have a division in steel challenge where they could draw 22 pistols from holster, right? Because they want to practice with their 22 pistol because it's cheaper than 9mm ammo, right? That's really all it is. That's a benefit to this one person, and this is his idea, right? So the high power is making this comeback. Springfield's got it. FN's redesigned it. It doesn't fit into any of our divisions. So I took a picture of one that I have, and I was like, this has been in production for 80 years. There's millions of them sold. I bought one. You should make a division for me. So I have a gun that I bought that I can go and shoot competitively someplace, right? And that's literally what we hear sometimes is, I want this for me. So
Sure.
there's 35,000 members. There's 22,000 non-members that participate in USPSA events. There's probably another 30 to 40,000 between IDPA and multi-gun that are out there. So there's a voice of 100,000 active shooters that are out there. But I got one gun, and I want a division for it. So you should do it. That's a horrible argument. But to get a whole bunch of people together and be like, all right, hey, this division should look like this because the industry's going in this direction, and we would like to see this, or you guys should try it out. Here's this, or this rule's dumb. I mean, Shannon's got one that we didn't change on the disappearing target. This rule's still dumb, so we're going to beat up on some people, and we're going to put some things together and try to get it to work. And that's how change really happens. You push it out there, and you start talking about it, and you get people involved, and I have no problem filtering this stuff up to the board and standing in front of them and making a valid argument with them on things. Doesn't necessarily mean it's going to happen, but I'm pretty good at talking to them about stuff.
Well, that's how we got carry optics, right? Is the industry changed, then dots became
and PCC too.
and PCC too. Yeah.
Well, that's how we got the holster precision change, right? So you got all these guys that are running around out there with a red dot pistol that they're shooting from appendix, and they're automatically bumped to open division for arbitrary holster position. Now, in open division, that's a perfectly legal position. But in carry optics, if I moved my gun 2 inches in front of my hip, I'm automatically in open, but my gun's not competitive.
Right.
So let's fix that, right? Some of the loose restrictions on, everyone was like, you killed production. Oh, I don't know. We made it more inclusive to these guns that are out there. There's no reason why a manufacturer had to make 500 guns in carry optics, then turn around and send in a form to say they made 2,000 guns in production when it's the same gun that fits both divisions. And if you can change a 320, where I take a fire control unit out and build a gun that was never built, but every part on it's legal, why does SIG have to send in a form to build 2,000 of that gun for me to go and compete with it? Or why did Walther had to release the Q5 steel frame that was legal in carry optics, but not production until they built another 1,500 of them? That was just dumb. It's just, to me, it didn't make any sense. So we changed it. But it just took the right argument and standing in front of the board to be like, here, like, why can Wilson Combat take a Glock 34 and put front cocking serrations on it, but I can't take it to my gunsmith and have the same thing done? Why is that gun now legal and not legal?
Yeah.
So we fix that stuff. So I'm not opposed to fixing things, and neither is the board. It's just got to make sense for the majority of the membership, not the one guy who bought a high power and wants to not shoot it in L10 at a disadvantage.
Well, that's great to hear, and it is great to hear that the board has been receptive and that the organization overall has been receptive to changes and to improving things. Like I've been telling people in shows recently, it's like if you don't get involved and you just poo-poo it and say like that's not for us, then your voice can't be heard. So Reuben, thanks for, having those conversations on behalf of Multigun with Jake, and Jake, thanks for being receptive to it. We got just a couple minutes here, guys. So I'm going to go around the horn and see if we can do a final thought. So Shannon, we'll start with you, man. You got USPSA Multigun Championship coming up here. You seem oddly cool for a man who's going to be putting on a huge match in just a couple weeks. So,
well, I'm in a good spot because, Jake and those USPSA want me to come and help out. Sometimes I do more than others, but Jake does a ton of work. So a lot of the logistical stuff, running the registration site and getting back to people and taking the money and a lot of stuff that I'm accustomed to doing when you're running a match has been taken off my plate. So we work really well together. We've got a great team. We've got a good setup crew coming in. Got the stage designs done. We know what we need. So now it's just a matter of getting up there and putting it on the ground. There's still a few slots left in the match, so spread the word. If you guys want to come try it out, if you haven't tried USPSA Multigun, I almost promise you you'll have a good time. It'll be a challenging match. Hope for good weather, and we'll have some fun.
Right on. Reuben, how about you, man? You got a final thought for the audience?
And I'm just excited. More shooting is better, and get to see some cool places. This year we'll be able to head out to Cameo. It's a beautiful facility, and head out to South Carolina, shoot some out there. And from just my standpoint, like I always like getting out and meeting people on the range, interacting with our customers and the people who support us. But as a competitor, I'm really excited to see USPSA put the effort into fixing some of the things about Multigun that didn't make sense, and really pushing forward on expanding that side of the sport and the long gun side of the sport as well. And it's pushed me to do more training on the pistol side too. So I think that rising tide thing, whatever the saying is,
Raises all ships.
There
Yeah, and
you
I
go.
think us multi-gunners can definitely use some help on the pistol all the time. So, Jake, how about you?
No, I thank everybody that has been kind of receptive to the changes that USPSA has kind of experienced over the last year and a half. I mean, we've had a little bit of board changes and some things, and I hope they realize that the core group of the board, the employees, are focused on moving the organization forward outside of special elections and all that stuff. I mean, we want to get back to shooting. We want to get back to holding matches. And under the multi-gun rule set, we want to run our Multigun Nationals, but there are opportunities for match directors if you want to run standalone rifle, standalone shotgun, rifle, pistol, PCC pistol. It's all out there. We can help you through it. My email's jake@uspsa.org. We can get you signed up and get more shooting and more things going, and get more competitors out on the range doing what we like to do versus all the other kind of stupidity we've seen over the last year. So I'm excited about moving into 2022 and the support that we've had from the industry and from the competitors.
Great to hear. Well, exciting things happening at USPSA in the multi-gun realm, in the long gun realm, and cool stuff happening for the future. So thank you, gentlemen, for being here. I appreciate your time and discussing the changes, and hopefully there's a bright future ahead with USPSA and multi-gun.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
And thanks everybody for listening. We'll see you on the range.